Welcome to Fairy Tales Dashed 1.
Hello, my wonderful friends, and welcome. Find a comfy spot, maybe curl up under a blanket, and let the busy sounds of the day just drift away like little clouds. Are you ready? Good, because tonight our story isn't about a grand adventure with swords and dragons, but about a much quieter and perhaps even more magical kind of journey. It's about listening so closely to the world that you can hear its secrets. The story I have for you is called The Girl Who Mended a Star. In a tiny town nestled in a valley, so green it looked like a fallen emerald, lived a girl named Alara. The town was called Stillwater Creek, and it was a very quiet place. The loudest sound was usually the gentle gurgle of the creek itself, or the lazy buzz of a bumblebee tumbling through a flower garden. Alara was a quiet girl, which suited the quiet town perfectly. She had soft, mossy green eyes and hair the color of autumn leaves, and she didn't say much. But while Alara was quiet on the outside, her world was filled with sounds. You see, Alara was a whisper collector. Every evening, just as the sun dipped behind the tall peaks of the mountains, she would take her special whisper jar from its place on her windowsill. It was just an old jam jar, but Alara knew it was magic because it was perfect for its job. She would creep out into the twilight as the world held its breath between day and night, and she would listen. She would listen for all the sounds that had been lost or forgotten during the day. She'd hear the tiny sigh of a flower closing its petals for the night, and she would carefully cup her hands and guide the sound into her jar. Plink! She'd hear the ghost of a giggle left behind by children who had been playing tag in the lane, and she'd scoop it up. Plink! The soft papery rustle of a book page being turned in the library, the pitter-pat of a field mouse's heart as it scurried home, the gentle thump of a ripe apple letting go of its branch. All these tiny lost sounds went into her jar, where they would swirl together in a silent, shimmering dance. Most nights, she would just watch them for a little while before opening the jar and letting them all go back into the quiet of the world. But one evening was different. The sky was a deep velvety blue, and the first stars were beginning to prick through the darkness like tiny diamond pins. Alara was out by the edge of the whispering woods, her whisper jar held carefully in her hands. She listened. She heard the usual things, the sleepy hoot of a young owl, the rustle of a badger in the undergrowth. But then she heard something else. It was a sound unlike any she had ever collected. It was high and faint like the chime of a tiny cracked crystal bell. It was a sound that felt terribly sad and terribly alone. And it wasn't just a sound, it had a light. As the tiny chime reached her, she saw a flicker of silvery light, no bigger than a firefly drifting down from the sky. It spun slowly, lost and confused. Without thinking, Alara opened her jar, and the little silver sound drifted inside with a soft, lonely tingle. When she looked into the jar this time, she gasped. The other whispers, the giggle, and the flower sigh were invisible as always, but this new sound glowed. It pulsed with a gentle silvery white light like a captured piece of moonlight. And the feeling that came from it was so full of longing that it made Alara's own heart ache. She knew with a certainty that settled deep in her bones that this was no ordinary forgotten sound. This was something important, something that wasn't just lost, it needed to be returned. She closed the lid tight and held the jar to her chest. She could feel a faint pull from the light inside, a gentle tugging sensation as if it knew where it wanted to go. And it was pulling her upwards, towards the great dark hill that loomed over their valley, a hill so tall its peak was often hidden in the clouds. The townsfolk called it Sky Mirror Hill. Alara knew she had to go. She ran back to her little cottage, scribbled a quick note for her parents saying she'd gone to watch the moon rise from the garden, and grabbed a warm cookie from the pantry, tucking it in her pocket. With her glowing jar lighting the way, she set off following the pull of the lost silvery sound. The path led her into the whispering woods. By day, these woods were friendly and familiar, but by night they were a different world. The moonbeams slanted through the canopy like silver pillars, and the moss on the ancient tree trunks glowed with a soft green phosphorescence. The world was asleep, yet more alive than ever. The little light in her jar seemed to pulse in time with her own nervous heartbeat, a steady rhythmic glow. It guided her along a winding upward path she'd never walked before. The higher she climbed, the thinner the air became, and the brighter the stars seemed to burn in the vast dark sky. Finally, after what felt like hours, she came out above the trees. She was on the very top of Sky Mirror Hill. The peak was a wide, flat meadow of short, soft grass, and it felt like she was standing on the roof of the world. The silence here was a different kind of silence. It was a deep humming silence filled with the presence of a million billion stars. Alara looked up her head, tilted all the way back, and her breath caught in her throat. The stars were so close, so brilliant it felt, as if she could just reach up and touch them. The Milky Way was a thick, shimmering river of light splashed across the heavens, and the little sound in her jar was now pulsing, frantically tugging her gaze to one particular spot in the sky. She looked where it seemed to be pointing. There, nestled between the Great Bear and the sparkling crown of the Northern Queen, was a tiny, faint constellation. It was shaped like a little sleeping fox curled up with its tail over its nose. But something was wrong. Alara could see the shape of the head, the pointy ears, the curve of its back, but one of the stars, the one that should have been the bright, bushy tip of its tail, was barely there. It was a dim, flickering smudge, fading in and out of sight as if it were about to go out forever. And in that moment, Alara understood everything. The lonely, silvery sound in her jar wasn't a sound from Earth at all. It was the echo of that star. It was the star's twinkle, its shimmer, its song. And it had fallen all the way to the world below, leaving the little fox in the sky broken and incomplete. With trembling hands, Alara held up her whisper jar. The little light inside beat against the glass like a frantic moth desperate to go home. She took a deep breath of the cold, clean air and twisted the lid. Pop! She opened the jar and tipped it towards the sky. The silver chime did not just float out. It shot out. A brilliant ribbon of sound and light, it streamed upwards higher and higher, a shining thread connecting the little girl on the hill to the vast, dark canopy above. It flew straight towards the faint, sad constellation of the fox. As the light reached the fading star, there was a silent, beautiful flash. The dim star didn't just flicker back to life, it flared. It shone with a pure, brilliant silver-white light, brighter than any star around it, perfectly completing the shape of the little fox. The whole constellation seemed to shiver with joy, its light strengthening its form, now clear and whole against the velvet dark. For a moment, the little fox constellation seemed to dip its head, and one perfect, impossibly bright twinkle detached itself, and fell slowly, gently landing on Alara's cheek like a cool, soft kiss. A deep sense of peace and happiness washed over Alara. She hadn't just collected a whisper. She had mended a star. She stood there for a long time, just watching her celestial friend, the little fox, now shining proudly in its rightful place. The journey back down the hill was much easier. The path seemed to glow for her, and the whispering woods felt like they were humming a gentle, thankful lullaby. She crept back into her cottage just as the first hint of dawn was painting the eastern sky pink and gray. She slipped into bed tired, but with a heart so full it felt like it might float away. The next night and every night after that, Alara would look out her window. And high above she would always find the little fox constellation, and its tail star would always seem to be shining just a little bit brighter than all the rest, a secret hello just for her. She was still Alara, the quiet girl from the quiet town. But now she knew that even the quietest person listening with all their heart could help make the universe a little more whole. And so Alara, the girl who mended a star, never felt small or quiet in the same way again. She knew she was part of a much bigger, much more magical story written in the sky above. If Alara's journey to the top of Skymirror Hill lit up your imagination a little, like on this video would be like a star twinkling just for us. It lets us know that you enjoyed our adventure together. And if you subscribe, you'll always have a cozy spot saved for our next tale, ensuring you never miss a chance to dream with us. Until then, sleep well, and may all your dreams be filled with their own special kind of starlight. Good night.
See you again, and do like, share, and subscribe the channel. Fairy Tale.